The galaxy is a corpse. It died 10 millennia ago, murdered by Horus, and in its death throes, it birthed an empire of suffering. We are the inheritors of that rot, the caretakers of a dying dream, clinging to the skeletal remains of what we once were. The God Emperor sits silent on his golden throne, a testament to our failure, and we his children continue to fight in his name, not for victory, but for one more stolen breath before the end. In this charnel house of stars, humanity is not alone. The darkness teems with the alien, the heretic, the demon. The Ordo Xenos, in its shadowed wisdom, maintains classifications for these threats. There are the Xenos Majoris, the Orcs, the Eldari, the Tor empires that challenge our divine right. There are the Xenos Minoris, countless chaff to be purged. And then there is the final sealed category, Xenos Horrificus. These are not species. They are not civilizations. They are existential violations concepts, given flesh abominations whose very existence is a blasphemy against the laws of reality. The Umbra, the Sloth, the creatures of the Ghoul stars. But even within this litany of the damned, one name is not spoken. It is not recorded. It is excised, scratched out with obsidian knives from the most forbidden texts. Where the name should be, there is only a smear, a stain, a whisper of decay. Hrud. To speak the name is to invite its attention. To study it is to court madness. The Hrud do not arrive with the thunder of fleets or the roar of invasion. They do not send warnings. They are heralded by silence. The sudden agonizing silence of a cogitator freezing its logic circuits, corroded by an unseen blight. The silence of a fortress monastery's grand chronometer, its millennia-old gears seizing thick with a rust that was not there a moment before. The silence of a prayer dying on a priest's lips as his throat tightens with age. They are the scavengers, the vermin, the dwellers in darkness. This is the lie we tell ourselves to sleep. This is the comforting fiction that allows our soldiers to stand watch. We call them ragmen and shadow crawlers to diminish them, to make them a thing that can be cleansed with fire and bolt. But the truth is far more terrible. The Hrud are not a species that uses a weapon. The Hrud are the weapon. They are entropy made manifest. They are time's resentment given form. We do not learn of the Hrud through glorious after-action reports filed by triumphant generals. We do not see their banners captured and hung in the Hall of Heroes on Terra. We learn of them through the quarantined data slate, the one stained with the tears of the scribe who transcribed it. We learn of them from the black ships, from the cells that hold not psychers, but the survivors. The lone guardsman from the Viridian Twort compliance action, logged as 23 standard years old, but whose body is a withered husk skin, like cracked parchment over brittle bones. He sits in the dark, his voice a dry rasp lisping through missing teeth, lam-bam, babbling about the shadows that moved, the shapes in the corner of his eye, the sudden cold that settled in his bones. He speaks of watching his comrades, his brothers in arms, turn to dust before his eyes. Their laser guns, bright and new, became pitted relics. Their flak armor cracked and flaked away. And the men inside? The men aged a lifetime in the span of a heartbeat. Their screams turning from cries of terror to the weak, wet coughs of the truly ancient. To seek the origin of such a thing is not an academic exercise. It is not a task for a Magos biologist or an imperial historian. It is a question for the exorcist, for the radical, for the damned. To ask where do the Hrud come from is to ask where does rust come from? Why do stars die? Why does hope curdle into despair? It is an investigation into the fundamental nature of rot, the very principle of decay that gnaws at the heart of the Imperium itself. The price for this knowledge is not gold, not power. The price is your own substance. To study the Hrud, to truly comprehend them, you must let their essence touch you. You must feel the seconds slipping away faster, see the age spots blooming on your own hands as you turn the forbidden pages, feel the weariness of eons settle into your soul. This is not a quest for knowledge. This is a confession. This is an obituary. and it begins as all things must with the first sickening glance into the shadow. Before the horror, there is the disgust. Before the temporal anomaly, there is the physical revulsion. We try to categorize them, to place them in a box that our minds can comprehend. So we begin with what our eyes see, what our picked thieves capture in those fleeting, distorted moments, before the lens cracks and the circuitry corrodes. The first sighting is never clear. It is always a story told by a trembling void-ganger or a terrified armsman stationed on the lonely outposts of the deep dark. Listen to the testimony of Armsman Gruel, sole survivor of Orbital Watch Station Gamma 9, salvaged from his escape pod, his hair turned shock white, his face a roadmap of sudden wrinkles. It was the tween shift he'd whispered, his voice clicking. That dead hour when the only sound is the station's heartbeat, the thrum of the void shields. I was on the gantry overlooking Primary Cargo Bay 4. It was supposed to be empty, depressurized, awaiting the arrival of the Emperor's favor. But the light was wrong. It wasn't that the lumens were failing. It was they felt tired. The glow globes seemed dimmer, yellower. And there was a smell, like a wet grave, like spoiled milk and damp fur. Then I saw them. Not all at once, just a flicker in the corner of my eye. You know that feeling, like something just moved, but when you look it's gone. It was like that, but everywhere. Then one stopped, under a leaking pipe. It was thrown. It was wrapped in filth, rags, pieces of metal, bones, all strapped to a body that, it didn't look solid. It was hunched maybe 5 feet tall, but it looked heavier. It had too many arms, skin like melted wax hanging in folds. I saw a hand long with too many joints coiling around a piece of rusted rebar. And the eyes, deep in the hood of its rags. Just dark pits. They didn't reflect the light. They drank it. I raised my lasgun, my hands shaking. I shouted, and it bent, like a contortionist. It folded itself into a shadow, into a crack in the bulkhead no wider than my fist. It didn't crawl in. It flowed in. And then my gun jammed. The power cell, fully charged, was dead. And the rebar it had been holding. It was just a pile of red dust. This is the Hrud's physical reality. They are the star rodents, the vermin in the walls of the galaxy. They do not conquer. They infest. They are the ultimate parasites thriving in the places we abandon. Their chosen homes are the arteries of the Imperium's decay, the forgotten holds of millennia-old space hulks, those colossal graveyards of ships fused together by warp-spawned madness. The sump levels of hive cities far below the notice of the enforcers, where the foundations of society crumble into toxic sludge. The maintenance tunnels of orbital stations, the spaces between the decks. They do not build cities. They do not forge empires. They create nests. They burrow. But their burrowing is not through rockcrete and plasteel. The Hrud, in their obscene biology, possess an innate, instinctive ability to navigate the cracks in reality itself. They move through pass-throughs, ephemeral tunnels they create, or perhaps already perceive that lattice the fabric of real space. They slip from one shadow to another, not by walking, but by stepping sideways out of our perceived dimension and re-emerging in another. A kill team can clear a tunnel, weld shut every bulkhead set, Vox-activated Promethium charges, and declare the area clean. Minutes later, a sensor ghost will appear in the very center of that sealed corridor. The temperature will drop, the Chronos will stutter, and the smell of wet earth and spoiled time will return. They are in the walls. They are in the shadows. They are the filth that accumulates in the corners of existence, and no amount of purging, no amount of sacred fire can ever truly scrub them clean. They are the galaxy's accumulated grime given a hateful, skittering life. To understand the shadow, one must first dissect it. This task has fallen predictably to those who dance on the razor's edge of heresy. Magos Biologis. Tellurax excommunicate from the Martian Synod, logged his attempts from a quarantined Forge moon orbiting a dying star. His subject, a single Hrud scavenger, was contained within a temporal stasis field that flickered and groaned the energies required to hold the creature in now draining the station's reactors at an alarming rate. Log 771 Alpha. The subject Tellurax's synthesized voice crackled, defies classification. It is not mammal, not reptile, not insect. It is other. Releasing the stasis field for preliminary vivisection. The moment the temporal lock was eased, the Hrud, which had been held rigid, did not tense or struggle. It collapsed. The adamantium restraints designed to hold a rampaging orc were rendered useless. The creature's body, its bones and sinew seemed to lose all integrity. With a series of wet, popping sounds, its joints inverted. Its thorax compressed to the thinness of a parchment sheet. It flowed, not crawled, through a gap in its restraints, contorting its body in ways that geometry itself forbade. Tellurax activated the high-intensity laser scalpel. Commencing incision. The epidermis is mutable. It is not skin, but a waxy, semi-fluid sheath constantly sloughing off and regenerating, creating the filth described in all reports. The laser cut a line across the creature's back. There was no blood, no scream. The flesh simply parted, revealing the true horror. There were no organs, no complex cardiovascular network, no pulmonary system, no structured skeleton. Inside the waxy hide was only a slurry. A thick, pulsating greenish-gray paste swirling with cold, phosphorescent light. It smelled of static, damp soil and millennia-old dust. It is impossible. Tellurax's voice held a note of what in a human would be awe. This biological slurry. It appears to be a single undifferentiated proto-organ. It performs all functions. It is heart, lung, brain, and muscle all dissolved into a single sentient soup. It is the most inefficient, chaotic, and fundamentally wrong biological system I have ever encountered. And yet, it lives. It thinks. It hates. Before the Magos could retract the scalpel, a single droplet of the slurry splashed onto the articulated servo arm holding the tool. The effect was instantaneous. It was not a chemical burn, it was age. The gleaming, blessed steel of the Mechanicus arm blossomed with rust. The joints seized. The wiring insulation cracked and flaked away. In the span of 3 seconds, a piece of advanced technology was reduced to a pitted, useless relic. Tellurax slammed the stasis field back online, his mechanical heart pounding. The subject was not a life form. It was a localized extinction event. This scavenger, however, is merely the appendage. The true body of the Hrud is a thing of legend whispered in the Ordo Xenos as the juxta ecstasies the adjacent rapture. To the common guardsman who has seen one and lived a near zero number, it is simply the umpire. It is not born. It is created. In the darkest, most forgotten voids, Hrud scavengers gather in the hundreds. They begin a low, psychic chant that sounds like the grinding of tectonic plates, and then in a final horrific act of communal worship, they merge. Their individual waxy bodies dissolve. Their biological slurry flows together, coalescing into a single, massive entity. The umpire is a mountain of living decay. It is a vast, semi-sentient pulsating mass of the Hrud slurry the size of a small Imperial knight, or sometimes a hab block. It is almost entirely immobile. Its surface is a shifting landscape of half-formed faces, countless grasping arms and weeping orifices, all emerging from the roiling grey mass before sinking back in. It is not a queen. It does not breed. It is a gateway. It is a psychic amplifier, a living antenna that bleeds entropy into real space. It is the heart of the Hrud nest, and its slow, dreaming pulses warp the very laws of physics around it, thinning the veil, allowing the pass-throughs to open. And then there is the paradox. The weapons. The individual Hrud, the filth-covered rodent, carries a weapon of terrifying sophistication. It is known as the fusel. It is not the crude pipe gun of a mutant or the slug thrower of a savage. It is a sleek, black, organic-looking device. It appears to be made of some petrified alien wood, yet it is warm to the touch. It has no power pack. It has no ammunition port. It has no visible trigger. The Hrud merely points it. The air around the barrel crackles, and with a sound like tearing silk, the weapon draws ambient energy-light heat. Even kinetic motion compresses it, and fires a perfectly stable, blindingly white-hot bolt of contained plasma. It is a technology that rivals the Aeldaria feat of energy manipulation that the most enlightened magos of the Adeptus Mechanicus would give their remaining humanity to understand. How can this thing, this walking bag of primordial ooze, this creature of filth and entropy wield such a device? The contradiction is the first clue. The first sign that the Hrud are not mere scavengers. They are a riddle, and the answer is more terrible than the problem. The flesh is foul. The weapon is a paradox. But these are mere symptoms. The true sickness, the Hrud's most potent and defining terror, is not a thing they do, but a thing they are. It is an aura that surrounds them, a field of necrotic energy that leaks from their very being. The Ordo Xenos calls it the area of effect, temporally anomalous. The guardsmen who have felt it and returned as broken ancient men call it the Witherings. It is in its purest form a bubble of concentrated weaponized entropy. Consider the tragedy of Agri-World Viridia Prime. Viridia was the breadbasket of the Argolis sector, a verdant jewel of endless green fields and bountiful harvests, feeding the endless meat grinder of the Imperial Guard. Then one day the tithe ships arrived to empty docks. The astropaths, their minds straining, heard only a dry, static hiss where a vibrant choir of millions had once sung. The Cadian 122nd Shock Troop Regiment was dispatched to investigate. They were the finest of the Guard, disciplined, hardened, prepared for anything. Orcs, heretics, demonic incursions. They were not prepared for this. Colonel Varys's initial Vox report delivered from orbit was heavy with disbelief. "It's wrong." He crackled the signal already degrading. "The planet? It's gray. We have no sensor readings of life. Not no life forms. Just no life." They landed in what was once the capital city. It was not a war zone. There were no craters, no bloodstains, no signs of orbital bombardment. There was only dust. The towering rock-crete silos built to last millennia had crumbled. Not shattered, but crumbled as if they were 10 million years old, their surfaces pitted and worn by eons of wind that had never blown. The vast fields of grain were now deserts of petrified silica. The great Viridia River, wide as a void frigate, was a dry, cracked canyon, its bed a tomb of skeletal fish. Varys, stepping from the Valkyrie, felt his boot crunch, not on soil but on a fine grey powder. The planet's life had been siphoned away. Contact was made in the central plaza. The shadows were too long. They bent at impossible angles, clinging to the Cadian's boots. Then the skittering shapes emerged from the dust-choked ruins. "Engage!" Varys roared. The 122nd formed a perfect firing line. 100 lasguns flashed in unison, a chorus of focused crimson light. And nothing happened. The las beams, coherent lances of pure energy, left their barrels, and in the 20 meters of stale air between the Cadians and the enemy, they died. They faded. They decayed. The crimson beams became weak, reddish glows like dying embers, their energy dissipating over an unseen eternity. They struck the Hrud's filthy rags with all the force of a guttering candle. Varys screamed, "Volley fire again!" Again the light of the Imperium died in the air. The very energy of their weapons was being eaten. It was aging, shedding its heat and power over 1,000 years, all in the span of a single second. Then the shadows fired back, the white-hot plasma from their fusils. It did not fade. It tore through the oppressive air, pristine, perfect, devastatingly new. It struck a chimera, and the transport vanished in a flash of molten plasteel. The Hrud's weapons were immune. Of course they were. They were not of this timeline. They were not subject to its decay. They were the cause of it. The Cadians broke. They were the finest, but they were men. The catastrophe triggered an Astartes response. A single kill team from the Iron Talons chapter, a stubborn Imperial Fist successor, teleported into the heart of the anomaly, seeking the source. Brother Sergeant Pallas, a 200-year veteran, led the strike. He was clad in holy Terminator armor, his storm bolter roaring, his power fist crackling. He bellowed, "For the Emperor and Dawn." A wave of invisible something washed over them from a large, pulsating mound in the center of the plaza, an umpire. Pallas's war cry. It cracked. It went from a lion's roar to a dry, wheezing gasp. The auto-sensors in his helm display went insane. Biosign critical. Urge 97. Urge 164. Urge 380. He looked down at his gauntlet. The sacred golden ceramite changed. It didn't just rust, it oxidized. It blossomed with 1,000,000 microfractures. It turned brittle gray. A thick coat of dust, the dust of ages, settled on his pauldrons. He tried to lift his fist. He couldn't. His transhuman muscles, the pinnacle of the Emperor's genius, were gone. Atrophied. His flesh was shrinking inside the armor. He could feel his skin tightening over his cheekbones, his eyes sinking back into his skull. The ceramite, no longer supported by the power armor's failing systems, cracked. It shattered and fell away from his body, revealing the horror beneath. Not a space marine, but a mummy. A desiccated corpse, ancient, shriveled his mouth open in that final, silent, wheezing scream. Brother Sergeant Pallas, veteran of 100 campaigns, died of extreme old age in 30 seconds. His armor, his bolt gun, his blade, all turned to scrap, to dust, to nothing. This is the Witherings. This is the true weapon of the Hrud. It is not a gun. It is the universe's final impatient sigh. In the grand ignorant edifice of imperial xenology, there exists a fatal flaw, the assumption that horror is a singular category. We, in our arrogance, lump the unexplainable together. Thus, for centuries, the Hrud have been conflated with another nightmare that crawls in the dark. Inquisitor Valdane, his face illuminated by the cold, flickering light of a data slate, reviewed the two files. They sat side by side in the Ordo Xenos archive, locked under the highest security protocols. File designation Sloth. Classification Xenos Horrificus. Common name the Maggot Men. The dossier was thick with reports of infiltration of planetary governors, found hollowed out, their skins used as puppets. It detailed a species, or perhaps a collective of writhing worm-like creatures that formed a humanoid shape, always draped in heavy, dark cloaks. They were flesh traders, slavers, masters of biomechanical constructs and disintegration technologies that left no trace. They were a cold, calculating, and utterly malignant intelligence. Beside it, the second file. File designation, redacted. Classification, Xenos Horrificus. Common name, the Hrud. This file was different. It was emptier. The reports were fragmented, contradictory, and stained with the psychic imprint of terror. See here, Acolyte Valdane's voice was dry like rustling parchment. He was speaking to a new scribe, a young woman who still possessed the light of sanity in her eyes. This is where our predecessors failed. This is where the Imperium signs its own death warrant, not with a bang, but with a simple filing error. He gestured to the slates. Superficially, they are the same. Both are dwellers in shadow. Both avoid direct confrontation. Both are physically repulsive, defying our definition of singular life. Both are associated with the sudden, inexplicable disappearance of Imperial assets and personnel. To the panicked mind of a hive city enforcer, a man made of worms and a shadow that dissolves matter are two versions of the same boogeyman. Valdane leaned back, the light casting deep shadows in his own wrinkled face. But they are fundamentally apocalyptically different. the sloth. They are malice. They are a civilization, however monstrous. They are merchants. They want something. They harvest your flesh to trade it. They steal your technology to reverse engineer it. They infiltrate your command structure for purpose. A sloth is a predator. It hunts. It has a motive. You can, in theory, comprehend a sloth, just as you can comprehend a dark elder. It is an evil you can name. He pointed a trembling, age-spotted finger at the Hrud file. But these are entropy. They are not a civilization. They are a condition. They do not harvest. They erase. They do not want your body, your world, or your soul. They want the heat from your sun. They want the energy in your cells. They want the time you are occupying. The sloth are a scalpel precise and cruel. The Hrud are a cancer mindless and absolute. This confusion is not academic. It is lethal. He recalled the reports from the Sump War of Hive Primus on Signia 7th. The Ordo Hereticus mistaking signs of Hrud infestation, the failing power grids, the decaying infrastructure, the whispers of shadow men for a sloth infiltration had acted decisively. They deployed a full preceptory of the Adepta Sororitas, the Order of the Valorous Heart. They descended into the Sump with righteous fire, expecting to battle biothralls and worm constructs. They came with blessed Prometheum hymns of purity and bolters loaded with sanctified rounds. They came prepared for a war against corruption. They were not prepared for a war against physics. The Vox logs are now stored in the deepest inquisitorial vault designated Vox Damnatus. The first reports were confident. Contact Xenos filth cited for the Emperor, then confusion. The audio quality degrades not with static, but with age. The Canoness's strong, clear voice becomes thin, reedy. The Prometheum. It is cold, she gasps, the audio crackling. It will not ignite, brother sisters. Their armor. It is rust. Just dust. The hymns of the sisters turned to the frail, wheezing coughs of the ancient. The reports of bolters were replaced by the dull click of jammed mechanisms, their propellant rendered inert, their shells crumbling. The last transmission was not a battle cry. It was a single terrified, shuddering breath, a sound from a throat 1,000 years old. The light. The Emperor's light. It is fading. Valdane closed the files. The Imperium sent its purest warriors to fight a maggot. Instead, they were consumed by the void. We prepared for an actor and were undone by a concept. This acolyte is the Hrud. The mistake is not in fearing them. The mistake is in thinking you know what it is you fear. The Imperium in its blind hubris believes itself to be the only true power in the galaxy, our tragedies the only ones that matter. But the stars are ancient, and the void is littered with the graves of civilizations that rose and fell before the first human ever looked up from the soil of terror. To find the origin of the Hrud, we must look not to our own records, but to the echoes left by their oldest victims. We must speak of the Takra. It is a name lost to all but the most forbidden archives of the Ordo Xenos. They were not a race of warriors or conquerors. They were artists, architects of pure light. The Takra were a species of sentient crystalline entities living for millennia, perceiving the universe as a grand, slow symphony. Their bodies were intricate lattices of living crystal, their minds a cold, clear consciousness that pulsed with stored sunlight. Their cities built on desolate moons were not structures of plasteel and rockcrete, but grown cathedrals of impossible fractal beauty resonating with a frequency that sang to the stars. They were in essence timeless. They were permanence given form. They were the antithesis of the Hrud. And so they had to be consumed. The infestation of the Tikra home system to Crania Prime was not an invasion. It was a contamination, a stain. It began as it always does at the periphery, a forgotten mining outpost, a listening array on a distant asteroid. The Tikra, in their slow, glacial consciousness, noted the anomaly. a sector of space where the light of their home star seemed to dim, to tire. They dispatched a crystalline envoy, a shard of their own consciousness, to investigate. The envoy's song, its telepathic resonance, was clear and bright as it approached the asteroid. Then it began to warp. The pure, clear tones flattened. They became discordant brittle. The song became a scratching like sand on glass. Then silence. The Takra, in their ageless wisdom, were confused. They had known war with the orcs. They had known the cold pride of the Eldari. This was new. This was wrong. The stain spread. It did not move through space in ships. It moved through the shadows between space. It was a mold, a creeping mildew of entropy. It reached Tacrania Prime. What followed was not a battle. It was a dissolution. The great crystal spires of the Tukra, which had stood for 100,000 years, which were designed to stand for 1,000,000 more, began to fog. The inner light they held, the captured starlight of their birth, grew dim and yellow. The symphony of shattering, the Ordo Xenosphile called it. All at once, the structures that had sung to the stars for eons cracked. Not from a weapon, but from age. Microfractures, the kind that take a comet 10,000 years to develop, appeared in seconds. The glorious fractal edifices taller than any hive spire did not explode. They groaned. They shattered. They collapsed, sloughing off their perfect angles, crumbling into measureless dunes of fine grey sand. And the Tikra themselves, they suffered the same fate. These ancient, patient, 1,000-year-old beings, their crystalline bodies harder than adamantium, became opaque, brittle. The light within them guttered like a candle in a gale. Their consciousness, a repository of eons, shattered. Imagine a mind that holds 10 millennia of memory, and in 1 minute it is afflicted with 1,000,000 years of senility. Their crystal forms cracked, flaked, and disintegrated. When the Eldari, the only other race to note their passing, sent a scout team, they found a dead system, a system of dust, a system where every planet, every moon, every asteroid had been aged 10 million years. The Takra were gone. Their cities were gone. All that remained was a single cold, silent rock, and the lingering sour smell of the grave. The Hrud had not conquered them. They had not defeated them. They had simply ended them. They had eaten their time, gorged themselves on the permanence of an entire species, and left nothing but dust and silence. This was the first and most terrible clue. The Hrud are not a mere pest. They are a force of universal extinction. They are the great filter made manifest. The first and most ancient of theories lies not in the archives of humanity, but in the cold, silent data crypts of our most ancient enemy. It comes from a source so alien, so antithetical to life, that its testimony must be considered absolute. It comes from the Necrons. In a quarantined scriptorium deep within the shielded heart of Forge World Styges VIII, Magos Dominus Arcantel conducted his forbidden work. He was not a historian. He was a xenoarchaeologist, a radical who believed the salvation of the Omnissiah lay in understanding the failures of his enemies. Before him, suspended in a null field, was not a book, but a Necron tesseract crypt recovered at terrible cost from the tomb world of Xantilar. For months, Arcantel had interrogated its silent, glowing glyphs, his mind locked in a logic war with the cold, dead sentience within. He was searching for weaknesses in the necrodermis. Instead, he found a memory. A file corrupted and quarantined not by him, but by the Necrons themselves. It was not their own record. It was an intercept, a stolen, horrified fragment of an Eldari lament dating back 60 million years to the war in heaven. The data translated through agonizing cogitation read, static. The first ones, the old ones, in their desperation facing the unliving, Necrons and the Star Eaters, Satan, have committed the final sin. They have unbound the principle of ending. They have given it a name. The Canib, the crawling scourge. A weapon to teach the deathless the meaning of death. A plague of seasons for a race that has forgotten them. They unleashed it upon the data-corrupted Legion. We watched the gleaming, immortal metal rust. We watched the deathless age. Arkantel's logic circuits raced the implications, forming a terrifying syllogism. The war in heaven. The Old Ones, masters of genetics, and the Imperium were pushed to the brink. Their psychic creations, the first Aeldari and the Krork, were not enough to stem the tide of cold, implacable, immortal metal. The Necrons, having shed their flesh, were immune to disease, to psychic terror, to the frailties of life. They were eternal, so the Old Ones, in their terrible, arrogant wisdom, weaponized the one concept their enemy believed they had conquered: time. The hypothesis took shape in Arkantel's mind, a vision of pure, logical horror. The Old Ones did not discover the Hrud. They created them. They designed a biological engine of pure entropy, a living plague that did not carry disease, but was the disease of time itself. Imagine the first deployment. A gleaming phalanx of the Necron legions, their Geus flares silent their metallic forms, a perfect silver tide. They do not feel. They do not fear. They simply advance. Then the Old Ones release the Knib. It is not a battle, it is chemical reaction. The air shimmers with a cold grey light. The Hrud, or what would become the Hrud swarm, and the Necrons stop. Their silver necrodermis, a substance that can withstand the heart of a star pits. It oxidizes, it blossoms with a patina of verdigris and rust, not over millennia, but in seconds. Their joints moved by living metal seas, choked with the dust of ages. The deathless warriors, immune to all harm, simply crumble. They are reduced to piles of ancient brittle slag and rusted fragments. The weapon was a success. An absolute, terrifying success. But it was too successful. The Old Ones, in their hubris, believed they could control a fundamental law of the universe. They had created a hunger that could not be sated. After the Necrons had fallen to dust, the weapon turned on the planet that hosted them. It drank the heat from its core. It ate the light from its sun. It began to gnaw on the very fabric of real space, its entropic field weakening the veil, creating the very pass-throughs that would become their method of travel. The weapon was no longer a weapon. It was a self-replicating sentient apocalypse. They tried to destroy their creation. But how do you kill decay? How do you wage war on a shadow? You can only contain it. They cast them into the void, sealed them in stasis fields, and in their final act of desperation, drove the swarms into the one place they still controlled. And this Arkantel realized was the final damning piece of evidence: the webway, the labyrinthine dimension, the grandest creation of the Old Ones, the secret extra-dimensional highway of the galaxy, a network of tunnels immune to the tides of the warp. Why can the Hrud move through the cracks of reality? Why do they appear in sealed rooms? Because their creators built the walls. The Hrud understand the webway. They understand the passages between the passages because they were born of the same science that created it. They are the rats in the walls of the galaxy. The Old Ones are gone. The Eldari inherited their grand, beautiful house. But the Hrud, the Knib, are the sin they left behind skittering in the foundations. They are the vermin that have been gnawing on the hidden roots of reality for 60 million years. They are the living, crawling proof that the Old Ones, in their attempt to win a war against the deathless, simply created a new, slower, and far more patient end. The Necron data crypt is but one possibility, a cold metallic echo from a war 60 million years dead. The other great hypothesis comes from a living, mocking source. It comes from the masters of the webway themselves, the Eldari. Inquisitor Kessel, a man whose soul was already greyed by the mere study of the Hrud, stood before the containment cell. Inside was not a creature of rage or muscle, but an impossibility, a captured shadowseer of the Harlequins. To catch one is to catch the wind itself. It had cost Kessel his entire retinue 3 companies of Vostroyan Firstborn, and a fragment of his own sanity. It hung in a psionic baffle cage, its hollow suit flickering its mask, a blank, mocking mirror. Kessel presented his evidence. The Necron intercepts, the link to the old ones. He demanded confirmation. They are your creators' sin, are they not? A weapon left to run wild in your hidden corridors. A sound entered Kessel's mind. It was not a voice. It was the sound of 1,000 crystal goblets filled with tears shattering on a marble floor. It was the sound of a mocking, tragic, eternal laugh. Enemy. The word was a cascade of shifting psychic masks. You Mon-K. You call the Knib an enemy. The laughter turned sharp, acidic. You believe them to be a weapon. How utterly functional. How very human. You see a horror, and you assume it must have a purpose. The Shadowseer's form seemed to bend the light around it. They are not our enemy, Inquisitor. They are our shame. They are the reflection we shattered and tried to bury. They are the other choice. Kessel felt a cold dread creep up his spine. Choice. When the fall came, the Harlequin hissed the psychic voice now laced with a venom that burned Kessel's mind. We were all undone. The great enemy was born of our souls, and we were faced with a choice. How to survive my cousins in Komarach. They chose the path of exquisite, vibrant decadence. They chose to feed the universe's suffering, to stave off their own. We, the Harlequins, we chose the path of light and shadow of remembrance, forever dancing on the edge of oblivion. And the Exodites, they chose the path of simplicity of the beast of the earth. The masked face tilted. But there was another path. A path few chose. The path of stillness, the path of rot, the path not of vibrant sin but of cold grey, ending. They are the branch of our race that when faced with the choice of being consumed by she who thirsts chose instead to become the one thing the thirsting prince would never desire. They chose to become entropy, to become cold, to become dust. They are the Aeldari who chose decay over decadence. And for that abandonment of life, of art, of passion, they are our deepest, most unforgivable shame. This, then, is the second great theory. The Hrud are not an ancient weapon. They are Eldari, a devolved, mutated, self-corrupted branch of that ancient race, who in a desperate, nihilistic act of self-preservation embraced the very concept of decay, transforming themselves over millennia into the filth-ridden, time-eating vermin they are today. A sub-theory, a variation on this theme, points a more direct and perhaps more plausible finger. It points to the dark city Komarach, the homunculus covens. They are masters of the flesh. They have sculpted bodies into living weapons, into art, into agony. But what is the one thing they cannot control? What is the one medium that eludes even their godlike arrogance, time? Imagine then a conclave of Urian Rakarth's most depraved apprentices. Their goal not just to shape flesh, but to distill time itself. To create a creature that does not just inflict pain in the now, but one that can steal time. A living alembic. A being that could suck the age from a rival Archon, or inflict a millennium of withering on a rebellious slave in an instant. They took Aeldari stock. They warped it. They injected it with captured entropy. They starved it of light, of passion, of life. And they succeeded. They created a creature that ate time. And it was a failure of catastrophic, magnificent proportions. It ate the time from its creators. It ate the time from its adamantium cage. It ate the time from the very foundations of the laboratory. It was an uncontrollable, ravenous void. And the homunculi, in a singular, unprecedented moment of genuine panic, could not destroy it. They could not unmake it. So they did the only thing they could. They opened a webway portal to a random, forgotten spur and ejected their failure into real space. The Hrud are not an ancient race. They are a spill. A biological catastrophe, a failed experiment of the galaxy's most depraved minds, let loose upon an unsuspecting universe. The evidence, it is thin but chilling. The Hrud's impossible contorting agility. Is it not a hideous parody of Aeldari grace, their instinctive knowledge of the pass-throughs and the cracks in reality? Is it not a corrupted, devolved echo of the Eldari's innate mastery of the webway? And most damning of all, the umpire. The Eldari, in their wisdom, created the Infinity Circuit, a gestalt of crystal, a collective of souls, a way to preserve their minds and spirits in a harmonious whole, safe from the great enemy. Now look at the umpire. It is a gestalt. It is a collective. It is a merging, not of souls, but of slurry. A pulsating, mindless, horrific mass of biological rot. It is an infinity circuit in reverse. It is not a beacon of preservation. It is a psychic generator of decay. It is the ultimate perversion of the Aeldari soul, a choir that sings not of creation, but of the universe's final cold grey and utter end. The third path, the most well-trodden, the simplest and perhaps the most seductive in its logic. In a galaxy where all suffering flows to four great malevolent intellects, any phenomenon of such magnitude must by definition be a servant of chaos. And when the phenomenon is decay, when it is the inevitable collapse of all things, the Imperial Catechism points to only one culprit: Nurgle, the Plague Father, the Lord of Decay, the Master of Pestilence. The logic is undeniable at first glance. We see the Hrud's witherings, and we see the touch of the Plague Lord. We see the crumbling cities of Viridia Prime, the rusted armor of the Cadian 122nd, the desiccated mummified corpse of Brother Sergeant Pallas. Is this not the essence of decay? The Hrud's appearance, too skulking, filth-covered, swathed in rags, their bodies a biological slurry. It reeks of the miasma of the plague planet. It is easy to see them as just another stranger breed of plague-bearer, a new vector for the grandfather's gifts, a new symphony in his grand opera of rot. Many an inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus has declared this to be the truth, signed the writ, and dispatched his forces believing he is fighting a familiar foe. This assumption has cost us more worlds than the Hrud themselves. The truth is found, as it so often is, in the testimony of those who have truly faced the enemy. The testimony of Brother Justicar Anvel of the Grey Knights following the disastrous St. Gideon's campaign refutes this. His words, psychically purged of taint, but cold with certainty, are etched into the inquisitorial record. You speak of what you have seen. The Justicar's voice transcribed is described as sounding like cold iron. I speak of what I have felt. I have stood in the garden of Nurgle. I have breathed the stench of its pestilential life, and I tell you, this is not it. He elaborated his words, chilling the attendant scribes to the bone. The grandfather's rot. It is fecund. It is a grotesque generosity. It is a cycle. A corpse bloats with gas. It bursts. It feeds the worms. The worms feed the flies spread the pox. It is a teeming, buzzing, living corruption. It is a jungle. It is hot. It is a chaotic, screaming, joyful renewal. But the witherings of the Hrud, they are sterile. They are silent. There is no life in it, no bacteria, no rebirth. The Cadian's flesh did not rot. It evaporated. It turned to dust, to nothing. It is the cold of the void. It is the absolute final zero. It is a desert where nothing ever grew. Nurgle is the cycle of life and death. The Hrud are the end of the cycle. They are a stop. We can banish the demons of the Plague Lord. We can fight his rot with faith and fire. But the Hrud, they are a different truth. They are not a perversion of life. They are the absence of it. Justicar Anvel's final transcribed thought on the matter is a required text for all who would hunt this foe. It is not chaos. It is the thing that will in the end consume chaos itself when its long game is finally played out. It is the cold, silent void that will one day swallow even the great game. The ruinous powers are a storm. The Hrud are the vacuum that comes after. This leads us to the Hrud's own observed faith. For they do worship. Their nests, their umpire convergences are not just psychic beacons. They are temples. They are acts of supplication. Through fragmented, age-distorted vox captures and the babbling of the few survivors who have witnessed their rituals, we have a name. Ka! It is repeated, a dry, sibilant hiss that sounds like sand pouring onto dry leaves. Ka, he who slips between, the many-handed. Again the imperial dogmatist leaps, many-handed, slips between. Surely this is Tzeentch, the architect of fate, the master of change and manipulation, another mask for a known evil. But the Grey Knight's logic holds. Tzeentch is change. He is possibilities, infinite futures, endless schemes. The Hrud's field is the cessation of change. It is the end of all possibilities. It is the collapse of all futures into one single inevitable point dust. Ka then is not Nurgle. Ka is not Tzeentch. The many-handed is not a reference to limbs, but perhaps to timelines. The hands are the futures that Ka snuffs out, the possibilities he steals. Ka is not a chaos god born of the seething, passionate energies of the warp, the reflected emotions of living beings. Kor is something else, a different kind of god from a different, colder, darker, more empty place. A god of pure, absolute, and final entropy. An entity that is the heat death of the universe given a cold, patient, and ravenous consciousness. And its children are not demons, they are reminders. The Imperium is not the only power to encounter this shadowy plague. The Toe Empire, young, vibrant, and burning with the logic of its own manifest destiny, has also brushed against the void. Their reaction, however, was not one of superstitious terror, but of optimistic calculation. This was their first and most fatal mistake. In the Damocles Gulf during the Third Sphere expansion, Toe scouts of the Aircast noted an anomaly, a string of dead worlds not shattered by Imperial exterminatus, but simply silent. Scans showed no resources, no life, no strategic value, but they also showed movement, sensor ghosts and energy readings that defied their physics. They designated the anomaly Species 77 Alpha. Ethereal Arnel Toll, a pragmatic leader whose belief in the greater good was absolute, saw this not as a threat, but as an opportunity. The Imperium in its barbarism purges what it does not understand, he declared to his council. We shall do what they cannot. We shall include the Kroot, the Vespid. They all found their place in the Tauva, so too shall these shadow folk. He dispatched a delegation led by Poro Shiva, a watercast diplomat of renowned skill. Shiva was equipped with a full diplomatic corps, advanced sensor drones, and offerings of TOE technology. His mission: establish contact, assess the species, and begin the process of integration. The meeting was set on a derelict orbital station, a neutral ground. Poro Shiva and his retinue, including 2 XV-8 Crisis battlesuit bodyguards, entered the main concourse. The station was wrong. Poro Vox said Shaswik, his voice synthesized and calm. My suit's environmental scanners are indeterminate. The air is not toxic. It is inert. The ambient temperature is dropping. Below, absolute zero impossible. Adjusting sensors. The Hrud emerged. They did not walk. They flowed from rusted maintenance shafts and cracked conduits. Shiva, though physically repulsed by their rag-clad, multi-limbed forms, kept his composure. He signaled the drones. We are the TOE, his translator broadcast the voice smooth and reasonable. We come in peace. We offer you union. We offer you a place in a greater purpose. There was no reply, only the dry, rustling sound of their movement. Shiva felt a sudden, profound tiredness. It was not the weariness of a long journey. It was the weariness of eons. Poro Kylan's voice crackled. The calm was gone. There was static. My reactor readings. They are failing. I am not using power. It is leaving me. Shiva tried to raise his hand. It felt heavy. He looked down at his own console built into his diplomatic robes. The screen, a bright, clear blue, was yellowing. It flickered. This is not possible," he whispered. A cough escaped his lips. Not a wet cough, but a dry, dusty rattle. "Shazui," he gasped, his voice suddenly thin, reedy. "Retreat back to the Orca." "I cannot," Kylen's voice was now a bare whisper. "My joints, they are seized. The metal, it is rusting." There was a sound of tearing metal, a high-pitched groan, as the advanced alloys of the crisis suit warped and cracked. Poroshivar's black box recorder captured the final 30 seconds. It was only sound, the diplomat's breathing becoming the shallow, whistling gasps of a dying old man. The sound of his own advanced drones thudding to the floor, their anti-grav engines dead. And then the most terrible sound of all, the slow, groaning collapse of the Orca dropship's landing gear, its pristine, white-gleaming hull corroding and imploding under the weight of 10,000 years of decay, all happening in a single agonizing minute. When the Fire Warrior recovery team arrived, they did not find a diplomatic mission. They found an archaeological site. The Orca was a skeletal, rusted hulk, unrecognizable. The two crisis battlesuits were little more than oxidized, crumbling statues. When Ashasui tapped one, it collapsed into a pile of orange dust. They found Poroshiva at his console. He was ancient. His tow-blue skin was grey and translucent like dried parchment. His body was a shriveled, mummified husk. His bones snapped like dry twigs when they tried to move him. The ethereal untold reviewed the black box data in cold, horrified silence. The Toe Empire had learned a lesson that day, a lesson that struck at the very heart of their philosophy. Some things, some entities, could not be brought into the greater good. Some things were not part of the universe's vibrant, struggling life. They were the antithesis of it. You cannot negotiate with rust. You cannot have diplomacy with the grave. The theories swirl a miasma of conjecture and terror. They are weapons. They are corrupted elves. They are demons. But none of these hypotheses, none of these desperate attempts to categorize the horror can account for the single, glaring, impossible paradox that lies at the heart of the Hrud. The fusel. How can a species of vermin, a scavenger race that lives in filth and cloaks itself in rags, possess a weapon of such sublime, terrible sophistication? The Adeptus Mechanicus has spent millennia trying to perfect stable man-portable plasma technology, and our results are volatile explosive prone to catastrophic failure. The Hrud's fusile is perfect. It is cold to the touch. It has no power source. It has no moving parts. It simply works. It does not generate plasma. It siphons ambient energy, light, heat, even the kinetic energy of an incoming bullet, and converts it into a perfect, coherent bolt of destructive matter. It is a weapon that operates on a principle of draining and the pass-throughs. This is not the brute force warp jump of an Imperial vessel tearing a hole in reality. It is not the elegant, deliberate path of an Eildari webway gate. It is slipping. It is an instinctive, innate understanding of the flaws in the fabric of space-time, the wrinkles in the skin of the universe. How can a savage possess the knowledge of a god, the theories of the Old Ones and the Eldari attempt to explain this, but they feel incomplete? They feel like an answer we want to be true. The fourth hypothesis, and by far the most terrifying, did not come from an Inquisitor or a Grey Knight. It came from a Magos errant of Styges Epit, a heretic named Phylon, whose name is now on every Mechanicus kill list for the crime of thinking. Phylon, in a data burst transmitted from his hidden asteroid forge moments before his destruction, proposed the unthinkable. He proposed that we were looking in the wrong direction. "You are all fools," his text-only transmission read the simple, unadorned script more chilling than any rant. "You search for a cradle world. You search for a point of origin in the past. You dig through the graves of the war in heaven. You seek a beginning. You will not find one. Because the Hrud, they do not come from a beginning. They come from the end. Phelan's theory was not based on xenoarchaeology. It was based on pure, cold, horrifying thermodynamics. He spoke of the long cold, the great heat death, the inevitable final state of the universe trillions upon trillions of years in the future, when the last star has died, the last black hole has evaporated, and the entire cosmos is nothing but a cold, dark, infinitely vast graveyard of inert particles approaching absolute zero. A universe where all energy has dissipated. A universe where time has no meaning because nothing happens. This Phelan wrote is their home. They are the final shivering survivors of that dead universe. A species perhaps human, perhaps Eldari, perhaps something else entirely. It no longer matters that achieved a level of technological mastery we cannot even dream of. A species that watched their universe die, watched the heat and light leak away until they were starving. Not for food, but for energy, for warmth, for time. And so, in their final desperate act, this ultimate civilization, this race of scientific gods, committed the ultimate transgression. They pooled their last remaining energy. They built a machine not to travel through space, but to puncture causality, to travel against the river of time, back to a younger, warmer, more vibrant era, back to now, back to us. But the journey, the act of violating the most fundamental law of reality, it destroyed them. It was a journey of such profound, fundamental wrongness that it shattered their very being. It broke their bodies, devolving their sophisticated ancient forms into the biological slurry that Magos Tellurax observed. It broke their minds, erasing their civilization, their culture, their memories, leaving only the one driving primal imperative that had fueled their journey, hunger. They arrived here in our present as refugees, but they are not refugees of a place. They are refugees of time, and the journey inverted their nature. They are now carriers. They are living, walking, breathing manifestations of the long cold they fled. The witherings, the field of entropy, is not a weapon they use. It is the aura of their home, the absolute zero of the end of time leaking from their broken souls into our warm, living present. They do not mean to kill us. We are simply freezer-burned by their mere proximity and their survival. How do they live? They eat. They are entropy parasites. They consume the one thing we have in abundance, and they have lost time. They drain the heat from our guns, the age from our bodies, the life from our worlds. And Phelan's theory concluded in a final terrible spike of logic. They are sending it home. They are not just fleeing their dead future, they are feeding it. They are siphoning the stolen time, the stolen heat, the stolen life of our 41st millennium, and transmitting it forward through the pass-throughs to their dying embers in the dark at the end of all things. They are not scavengers, they are harvesters. We are their crop. The Hrud are not a relic of the past, they are a symptom of the future. A future that is so cold, so dead, and so hungry that it is reaching backwards through time to eat us alive. The heretic Phelan's theory, this time-eater hypothesis, is a key. A cold, rusted, impossible key. And it fits a lock we did not even know we were looking at. It turns, and 100 disparate, terrifying facts suddenly align. Their religion, their god, Ka. We in our dogmatic myopia tried to fit it into our pantheon of horrors. We called it Nurgle for its decay. We called it Tzeentch for its many-handed nature. But Phelan's revelation, it reframes everything. It illuminates the true chilling meaning. He who slips between. Yes, not between the shadows of a room, but between the seconds of a day. Between now and then. The many-handed. This is the most terrible of all. These are not the grasping, scheming appendages of a warp entity. They are not the limbs of a physical being. They are the timelines. They are the futures. Ka's hands are the countless possibilities that should have been. When the Witherings claim Akkadian trooper turning his vibrant youth into ancient dust, a hand of Ka has reached back from the end of time and plucked his future. All the battles he would have fought, the children he might have sired, the life he would have lived, all of it, stolen, consumed, siphoned away. Ka is not the god of schemes. He is the god of cancellation. He is the patron of the unmade. He is the void where a future was supposed to be. With this hypothesis, we analyzed a recovered Pict log, a fragmented, corrupted recording from a Deathwatch kill team's helm cam before it too succumbed to age. It shows what we had previously dismissed as a nest. It was a church. The scene is a vast domed cavern inside a derelict space hulk. The air is thick with the grey shimmer of the Witherings. In the center, a truly massive umpire, the juxta ecstasis, pulsates with a cold, pale grey light. It is the size of a warlord titan's head. And all around it in concentric circles are thousands of Hrud scavengers. They are not moving. They are not chanting. They are still. Utterly unnervingly still, like statues of filth, and they are channeling. You can see it in the Pict feed even as the recorder's mechanisms begin to fail. The Witherings field, it is flowing. It is being drawn from the very fabric of the space hulk. You can see the bulkheads aging, the plasteel brittles, the adamantium groans and cracks flaking away in showers of rust. The Hrud are acting as living conduits, siphoning the residual time, the structural integrity, the history of the colossal ship. They are draining it and feeding it to the umpire. The umpire is a pump, a great fleshy psychic siphon. It swells the light within it, growing brighter, colder. It is not praying, it is gorging, it is accumulating. And then it acts, with a sound that the Pict recorder translated as absolute zero static. The umpire discharges. It does not explode, it transmits. A column of pure negative energy, a beam of focused anti-time lances upwards from the creature. It does not hit the ceiling. It vanishes. It tears a hole, not in space but in causality. It is an offering. It is a tithe. It is a life-giving transfusion of stolen time, fired from our present across the gulf of eons, to them, to the future, to the long cold. This, then, is the true nature of their worship. It is not faith. It is not hope. It is not fear. A plant does not hope for the sun. It turns toward it. A plant does not fear the lack of water. It wilts. It is a biological imperative. The Hrud do not worship Ka. They are Qua. Ka is not a separate entity, a distant god demanding supplication. Ka is the collective ravenous terminal hunger of their dying future. Their worship is the act of feeding that hunger. It is their single driving instinct. It is the sole reason for their broken, paradoxical existence. Their purpose is not malice, it is sustenance. Ka is their source of life, their god-emperor, their son. And that source is our destruction. They are not here to fight us. They are not here to conquer us. They are here to harvest us. We are the fuel. We are the last guttering embers of a dying universe. And they are the cold, desperate hands reaching back through the dark to steal our warmth. The Time Eater hypothesis in all its terror feels complete. It feels like the final rusted key turning in the lock. But the universe in its infinite malice is never so simple. Horror is rarely singular. As our investigation deepens, as we peel back the final layers of this existential wound, we find that the Hrud, this manifestation of entropy, does not travel alone. It keeps company. We must now turn our gaze to another file in the Xenos Horrificus archive, a file that is, if possible, even more nonsensical. Designation Umbra. They are not a species. They are shapes. They are living, sentient, three-dimensional shadows, spheres of absolute, impenetrable blackness that float through the void. They are holes in reality. They drink light. Where an umbra passes, sensors register not just darkness but a negative luminescence. They are blacker than the vacuum of space itself. They are in essence anti-light. Like the Hrud, their origin is unknown. Like the Hrud, their motives are inscrutable. Like the Hrud, they are not a civilization. They are a phenomenon. And for millennia, they were considered a separate, unrelated horror, a different kind of boogeyman for voidfarers to whisper about, until the Gorgon's Lament. The Lament was an Adeptus Mechanicus exploration vessel that had plunged into the halo stars seeking lost knowledge. It did not return, but its data crypt, a hardened adamantium casket, was found 5 centuries later, drifting in a dead system, its outer hull pitted and aged millennia. The final pict log was salvaged. It shows the bridge of the Gorgon's Lament. The Magos in command is screaming, but his voice is thin, reedy, ancient. The ship's chronometers are spinning backwards, then forwards, then stopping altogether. The unmistakable shimmer of a Hrud witherings field is present. The crew is aging to dust at their posts. The ship is dying of time. But that is not the horror. The horror is outside the main view screen. Floating in the void where a star should have been is a sphere. A perfect massive orb of absolute black. An umbra. It is watching. And as the Hrud infestation overruns the ship as the entropy field reaches its peak, the pict log shows the umbra, feeding. It is not eating the ship. It is drinking the light. The Hrud are consuming the time, and the umbra is consuming the energy. This is not an isolated incident. The deeper we dig, the more the reports cross-reference. A Deathwatch strike on a Hrud nest finds not just the skittering time thieves, but also pools of living shadow coiling in the corners. An Ordo Xenos outpost monitoring a pass-through anomaly registers 2 signatures emerging a spike of temporal distortion and a matching simultaneous energy void. The hypothesis forms chilling and final. They are linked. They are not rivals. They are not master and servant. They are symbiotic. They are 2 halves of the same terrible equation. The Hrud are the entropy. They are the decay. They are the force that breaks down matter, that drains the potential energy, that unravels the time that holds the universe together. They are the unmaking. The umbra are the void. They are the cold. They are the force that drains the kinetic energy, the light, the heat. They are the nothing that is left behind. They are the ultimate parasitic partners. The Hrud crack the shell and the umbra sucks the marrow. One is the concept of the universe's death. The other is the result. They are the undertakers of the cosmos, the twin scavengers that follow the great dying. The Hrud are the ones who cause the star to gutter. The umbra are the ones who devour its fading light. They are the agents of the long cold, the twin manifestations of Quor, working in perfect, horrific concert. One eats your life, the other eats your light. The Imperium has one singular defining response to any force it encounters control. If it cannot be purged, it must be bound. If it cannot be bound, it must be weaponized. It is this arrogance, this fatal adamantium-clad hubris that defines the Adeptus Mechanicus. And in the Hrud they saw not an existential terror, but a tool. Deep in the Segmentum Pacificus, shielded by void static and quarantined from all Imperial star charts, lay the forge station Annam Nul. It was a secret project commanded by the radical Magos Heretic Scaevola. Scaevola had a dream. He believed stasis technology, the freezing of time, was a crude, primitive art. Why pause the enemy when you could erase them? Why build a gun that delivers a bullet when you could build one that delivers 10,000 years? His prize captured at the cost of 3 full Skitarii legions and a Titan maniple floated in the station's core. It was an umpire, a juxta-ecstasis held in the most complex containment field ever devised, not just void shields and force fields, but a temporal inverter. A machine designed to feed the umpire a constant stream of new time to keep it sated, like feeding a predator raw meat to keep it from eating its cage. They called it Project Kronos, the goal to tap the witherings, To siphon the entropic field channel it through a focusing lens and create the Kronos cannon. A weapon that could age a Chaos Knight to rust and ruin before it took a single step. Initiate Phase 4 Delta. Scavola's synthesized voice boomed across the command sanctum. His augmetic body gleaming and new stood before a wall of flickering data. We will begin the primary siphon. Draw 0.001% of the subject's temporal emission. The great machine in the core groaned. Arcs of blue, crackling anti-time, lashed against the umpire's containment. The creature, the pulsating grey mountain of slurry, did not react. It simply was. Siphon initiated a lesser Magos intoned. Energy levels, stable. We have containment. Scavola allowed a single grating burst of static, his version of a laugh. You see, the universe can be quantified. It can be controlled, even its ending. Now increase the draw to... He never finished. The flaw in his logic was so simple, so human. The machine he built to contain entropy was itself subject to entropy. The primary temporal inverter, the one device feeding the umpire, holding it in place, faltered. A single cogitator relay, a component no larger than a fist, did not break. It aged. 1,000 years of wear passed through it in a single microsecond. Its circuits became dust, and the containment failed. It was not an explosion. It was a release. The umpire no longer fed gorged. The Witherings field no longer siphoned expanded. A silent, grey, shimmering wave of pure ending washed out from the core. On the bridge, Scavola watched his gleaming metallic hand change. The chrome finish pitted, the steel oxidized, the joints seized. He tried to speak, but his voxmeter crumbled into a cloud of red dust. He died a 10,000-year-old statue of rust before his body could even fall. The wave washed over the entire station. The thousands of Magos and Skitari, the legion of servitors, the plasteel bulkheads, the adamantium core, all of it, included in the bubble of accelerated time. When the Ordo Xenos black ship Silent Vigil arrived, drawn by the station's sudden echoing silence, they found Annam Null intact. It floated in the void, pristine, undamaged, but dead. It was encased in a shimmering, hazy bubble that warped the starlight behind it. The new Inquisitor Kessel's successor was a cold, patient woman. She did not send a team. She sent a drone. The drone touched the edge of the bubble and vanished. Not destroyed. Its signal just aged into static. The drone's last telemetry, a single packet of data read, external time 1.4 seconds. Internal time elapsed 8,741,900 years. They watched. They waited. For 3 standard weeks they watched the station shimmer, and then its fuel consumed, the bubble popped. It vanished, the cold, stale smell of ages washing over their ship's sensors, even across the void. The Inquisitor's stormtroopers boarded. There were no bodies, no skeletons, no blood. The station was a tomb of dust. The Magos, the Skitari, they were just piles, heaps of fine, grey, inorganic powder ankle-deep in the corridors. The bulkheads, once proud Imperial steel, were brittle, flaked, and thin as parchment. A stormtrooper brushed against a central column, and it collapsed, its internal structure dissolved by 10 million years of decay. Project Kronos was a success. It had concentrated time, just not in the way they had intended. The Umpire, of course, was gone. It had fed and stepped sideways, leaving the Imperium to bury its own ancient, arrogant dust. The brute force of the Guard fails. The arcane hubris of the Mechanicus implodes, so the Imperium turns to its final, most specialized blade. It turns to the Death Watch. Where others purge, they hunt. Where others defend, they assassinate. They are the Astartes of the Ordo Xenos, the galaxy's preeminent alien slayers. They do not make the same mistakes. They learn. Kill Team Chrono Slayer was assembled. It was not a team, it was a curated set of solutions. Watch Sergeant Cord, a space wolf of savage pragmatism. Brother Telion, an iron hand, his logic as cold as the armor he wore. Brother Zal, a Raven Guard, his specialty the Shadow, and 2 others, including a silent, brooding black shield, his chapter unknown, his past sealed. Their wargear was not standard. Their armor was not merely blessed, it was warded. Null-treated ceramite forged in the cold, dead forges of a forgotten moon, etched with microcircuitry that sang a low, vibrating hum, a counter-frequency to the witherings. Their weapons were not just bolters. They carried stasis grenades, temporal sync charges, and rounds of their own, each one a miniature stasis bomb designed to freeze its target on impact. They were not going to fight the Hrud. They were going to out-physics them. Their target, the Umpire that had taken root in the core of the astropathic relay station Aetius 9, cutting an entire sector off from the Emperor's light. They entered not through a breach hole, but through a pass-through itself, using a captured Hrud artifact to key their way in. The transition was wrong. It was not the violent tear of the warp. It was a cold slipping, like stepping off a curb and falling for an eternity. They emerged into the Hrud's domain. It was not a corridor, it was a wound in reality. The walls were not plasteel, they were a shimmering grey fluid substance that looked like television static. Gravity was unreliable. With each step, the floor seemed to rise to meet their boots, then drop away. The air smelled of ozone, 10,000-year-old dust and spoiled milk. Contact Zarl's voice hissed, devoid of emotion. The shadows detached themselves from the walls. The Hrud swarmed. The battle was a silent, horrific ballet. The Death Watcher's null wards held. Barely. They moved as if wading through wet cement, the Withering's field, dragging at them a palpable physical weight of age. But their armor did not rust. Their bolters did not jam. For the Lion, a dark angel bellowed, firing his plasma gun. The bolt wobbled. It left the barrel, then slowed its light dimming before splashing harmlessly against a Hrud's rags. Slug Thrower's only cord roared his own bolt gun bucking. The stasis rounds worked. Where they hit the Hrud froze, locked in a single skittering moment, their Withering's field vanishing. But the Hrud's own fusils, they worked perfectly. White-hot plasma lanced through the non-space pristine, untouched by the decay. Zal the Shadow Walker jumped, and the bolt hit him mid-leap. He did not scream, he did not burn. The plasma aged him. His armor, his body, all of it, dissolved into a cloud of fine grey powder, which then scattered on a non-existent wind. They pushed on. Brother Telion the Iron Hand was cut off by a surge of shadows. He found himself in a pocket of distorted time. He raised his heavy bolter, but his hands, they felt wrong. He looked down. His augmetic hand, the gleaming silver of the Iron Tenth, was flesh. It was young, unscarred. His armor felt loose. He wasn't in Deathwatch black. He was in the blue of the Ultramarines. No, before that. He was an aspirant. He was a child. Then the wave reversed. The age hit him like a physical blow. His young regained hand withered. The skin tightened, cracked. His joints flared with a pain his transhuman body had never known. The pain of arthritis. His vision blurred. His helm's display crackled, died. He raised his bolter, but his arm trembled with the palsy of the ancient. A Hrud scavenger emerged from the static, and Telion the Iron-Handed could not lift his weapon. The black shield was there. He shoved Telion forward, his own bolter firing. "Move, Ancient!" They reached the core. The Umpire. It was a pulsating grey heart in a cavern of wrong space. Cord Telion and the black shield. The last 3. Stasis bomb. Now Cord bellowed. He primed the device. The Umpire screamed. A sound of tectonic plates grinding, of a billion clocks all stopping at once. A final wave of pure entropy burst from it. Telion in his ancient state was caught full force. He did not even have time to cry out. His armor, his bones, his body, petrified. He froze, a statue of rust and dust, his mouth open in a final, silent, 1,000-year-old gasp. Cord, he was at the Umpire. The stasis bomb detonated just as the entropy wave hit. The two forces collided. The laws of physics shattered. Cord was caught in the epicenter. His armor rippled. It shrank. It compressed, folded in on itself, the null wards overloading in a catastrophic flash. The black shield, shielded by the Umpire's own bulk, was the only one who saw it. When the light faded, Cord was gone. His armor lay in a smoking, crumpled miniature pile, and from within it came the thin, high-pitched wail of a newborn baby. The Umpire was dead. The pass-through was collapsing. The black shield looked at the statue of Telion. He looked at the wailing, microscopic suit of armor that was his sergeant. He could not. He grabbed Cord's dog tags. He activated his personal teleport homer. He materialized on the bridge of the watch fortress Scylla. He slammed onto the deck armor, smoking. The watch commander, stern and unmoving, approached. "Report, brother." The apothecaries moved to unseal the black shield's helmet. They stopped. The seals were fused. Not with heat, but with age. They had to cut the helmet from his gorget. It came free. The man inside was not the man who had left. His face was a skull draped in thin, translucent parchment. His eyes were milky, blind orbs. His flesh was a roadmap of wrinkles so deep they looked like canyons. His voice was a hiss. A dry, rattling, dusty sound. "Subject," he wheezed the word, taking a full 10 seconds to escape his throat. "Terminated." The watch commander looked at the mission chronometer on the wall. Total elapsed time, 4 hours, 12 minutes. The Black Shield, formerly a warrior in his prime, had aged 500 years. He had lived 5 centuries in those 4 hours, trapped in the temporal crossfire. He had won. He took one final, shuddering breath, and his ancient body, its task complete, turned to dust inside his armor. The mission was a success. My name was Inquisitor Valdane. Now I am just a testament. I am the final entry in a log of the damned. I sit in this scriptorium deep in the vaults of terror, the air thick with the hum of stasis fields and null wards. But they do not work, not truly. The chill, it is in my bones. I began this investigation a standard year ago. I was a man in my prime, my body honed by rejuvenate treatments, my mind sharp. Now, my hand, this hand that holds the stylus. It is a claw. It is a thing of spotted parchment and swollen knuckles. My breath is a thin, reedy whistle. The witherings. I was never even in the same room as a Hrud. I merely studied the artifacts. I opened the data crypts. I held the pict slate that recorded Viridia's fall. And the stain. The concept of them. It was enough. It leaked from the forbidden knowledge, and it infected me. I have aged 30 years in 12 months. So now, with what time I have left, I must write the final report. I must record the synthesis. The truth. We have chased their origin across 60 million years. We have blamed the old ones for their hubris in creating a weapon that kills time. We have blamed the Aeldari for their arrogance in perverting their own nature into a parody of decay. We have blamed the hungering dead future for reaching back to feed on our present. We have gathered the evidence, the Necron intercepts, the Harlequin's mockery, the Heretic's equation, and the final terrible conclusion is this. It does not matter. The question we asked, where do the Hrud come from? It is the wrong question. It is a child's question. It assumes a beginning. It assumes a linear causality that the Hrud, by their very nature, defy. Are they a weapon of the Old Ones? Yes, of course they are. A being of entropy is the perfect final weapon. Are they the corrupted nihilistic branch of the Aeldari? Yes. It is a path of despair so profound it is inevitable that some would choose it. Are they the refugees from the end of time? Yes, 1,000 times yes. The universe will die, and the will to survive that death, to fight it, is a force strong enough to break time itself. They are not one of these things. They are all of these things. They are a convergence, a terrible existential truth that has manifested in multiple ways at multiple points in history, all drawn to the same singular purpose. The Hrud, they are not a species. They are not an empire. They are not an enemy. The Hrud are a law. They are the second law of thermodynamics given a skittering, hateful, hungry form. They are the physical, sentient manifestation of the universe's desire to die. They are the principle of entropy itself crawling out of the equations and into our reality. They are the universe's immune system, and we with our light, our passion, our faith, our life, we are the disease. We are the unnatural, chaotic, hot infection in the cold, perfect stillness of the void. The Hrud are the antibodies. The Hrud are the fever that burns us out, the chill that settles in. Their origin, their true origin, it is not a place, it is not a time. The origin of the Hrud is the ending of all other things. They did not come from anywhere. They were always here. They are the shadow that was cast by the first light. They are the rust that was born with the first atom of iron. They are the silence that waits behind every word. We have been searching for the source of the rot, and we have found it. The source of the rot is rot. They are not from the grave. They are the grave. They are the inevitable patient certainty of the dust, and they are tired of waiting. They are here to finish the job. Chakshan hua, jaila ban viet laikwa chuangket luan bang tiengan. Conclusion: the final ticking estimated 15,000 characters. This report is finished, and I, its author, am finished with it. This investigation began as an act of faith, the faith that all things have an origin, and therefore all things can be unmade. We, the servants of the Imperium, live by this truth. We trace heresy to the first whisper. We trace rebellion to the first thought. We believe that if we can find the seed, we can burn the forest. It is a noble, necessary lie. It has held this galaxy together for 10,000 years, but it is nonetheless a lie. We were wrong to even begin this search. We were searching for an enemy. We had hoped to find just another Xenos Horrificus, another monster to add to the endless litany of horrors to be purged. We hoped for a battle we could fight, a war we could lose, or to dare to dream win. The truth I have uncovered, the truth that has etched itself into my skin, that has leached the strength from my bones, that has turned my voice into a dry rasp, is that there is no war to be fought. Because the Hrud are not an enemy, they are a truth. Look at our foes. Look at them, everyone, no matter how terrible, offers some grotesque form of hope. The war against the Orc is a test of endurance. The war against the Tyrannid is a test of sacrifice. The war against the Toe is a test of will. And the greatest war, the long war against the archenemy, is a test of faith. They are the fires that try us, and in opposing them, we are forged, we are strengthened, we are affirmed. Our existence has meaning because we resist them. But the Hrud, what is the war against the Hrud? What is it a test of? Nothing. It is not a test, it is a reckoning. It is the knock of the debt collector. It is the cold, impassive, unfeeling truth of the universe that all accounts eventually must be balanced. You cannot fight decay with a power sword. You cannot shoot aging with a bolt gun. You cannot command an exterminatus against the second law of thermodynamics. This is why of all Xenos they are the final horror. They are not the strongest. They are not the most malevolent. They are simply inevitable. They are the mirror held up to the truth the Imperium has spent 10 millennia denying. We boast of our relics, the fortress monasteries that have stood for ages, the warships that have fought since the Great Crusade. We take our permanence for granted. We believe that with will and with faith, we can keep the machine from breaking, the stone from cracking. And then the Hrud come. They do not assault our fortresses, they do not bombard our walls, they simply wait. They sit in the shadow, and our walls, those walls, the ones that withstood the fury of gods and the bombardment of fleets, rot. They turn to sand. They become dust. They are the living, crawling refutation of the entire Imperial project. They are the proof that eternal is an illusion, that everything, no matter how well built, no matter how sanctified, ends. We searched for their origin, and we found all of them, the Old One's weapon, the Aeldari's fall, the ghosts of a dead future. All of it is true. They are all of these things and more. They are the universe's fear of its own death given consciousness. They are the will of the ending. They are the fatigue of the cosmos made manifest. I am finished. My report, this grand synthesis, is now complete. Perhaps by naming this terror, by chronicling it, some future magos, some inquisitor less compromised than I can find a way. Some shield, some manner of temporal inversion field. I set down my stylus. My hand. It trembles. The skin is parchment stretched over swollen ancient joints. I began this report a man in his prime. Now my last hairs are gone, and I breathe with the rattling lungs of one who has lived 1,000 years. My sacrifice, it must mean something. This knowledge, it must survive. I look at the report, the data slate where I entered my final notes. The light, the crisp blue light of the text. It is fading. No, it cannot be. I blink, my old dry eyes. The light is fading. The text is turning from vibrant blue to a dull, sickly, jaundiced yellow, like ancient paper. The pixels at the corners of the screen, they are dying, going dark. I turn to the vellum pages I inscribed by hand. The ink I used, an eternal compound blessed by the Adeptus. It is browning. It is flaking, from the page turning to a dry scale. The words I wrote, they are disappearing before my eyes. No, I whisper. The sound is a dry hiss. The knowledge, even the knowledge, is not immune. It too dies. My report, my great work it is, eating itself. It is rotting. I did not bring knowledge into this vault. I brought them, the concept itself. It is here, in the room, in the ink, in the data. I look around my sealed vault, the adamantium arch, the 10-meter-thick door with the inquisitorial seal of office. This is the most secure location on Terra. I hear it. Not a scratching, not a footstep. A hard, softer sound. Sorry, like dust settling. A stream of fine grey dust is pouring from beneath the vault door. It is not forcing the door, it is flowing through the solid alloy as if it were not there. It flows into the room, forming a small, silent pile on the floor. The great brass chronometer on the wall, a gift from a Death Watch watch commander, counts the seconds with a heavy, reassuring clank. Clank, clank. The pile of dust, it spreads. Clank. The brass pendulum, heavy as a man, is slowing. The clank is now a drawn-out, groaning creak. Clank. It stops. The pendulum hangs motionless. The silence is absolute. The lumen globe overhead, the filament inside, designed to burn for 1,000 years, cools. It shifts from white-hot to yellow, to orange, to a dull, dying red, and goes out. Complete darkness. There is only breathing. Not mine. Something older is breathing. A dry hiss like autumn leaves is in the room with me, and the sound of time being eaten. Black screen.